So next is me talking about WASM loves Ruby. Basically WASM, if you haven't guessed, is WebAssembly. Um, so forgive me for these slides. They are last minute, not realizing that there was any speakers this morning, and then this afternoon, Vivek and Avi stepped up and saved me from just presenting this on my own. These are very heavily influenced from Yuta Saito. He presented a Ruby Kagi last month, I think, in Japan. You can so see his presentation here. Basically. Ruby has some great things, like, it has an amazing community, lovely founder. It's designed to make everybody happy. It's fast and dynamic to write. You can spit it out really quite easily. It's got a lovely gem ecosystem, lots of libraries. There's some really bad problems with Ruby. Basically, you can't run it on certain browsers. You can't run it on the mobile devices, or install it on mobile devices, should be better to say. It's hard to run Ruby on a user's machine, so you don't run it directly on your client's machine. Usually you use a backend service. Now you have to maintain a server, and so on and so on. You can see the problems. Installation is not always easy, especially for beginners, and builds often fail or installations fail. WebAssembly essentially changes the game. Okay, it's designed to be what Java wanted to be and said it was way back when, which is portable and could be installed on anything. It could basically be, it doesn't matter what language it is, it can compile or transpile back into the language that you're looking for. Really small load time, really small size of bundles as well, and it's secure. So essentially, you can use third-party languages, programs via WebAssembly and know that your machine is going to be protected, and it's completely sandboxed. So WebAssembly to the rescue. So basically now you can use Ruby with WebAssembly. It's now become one of those first-class languages. Rust is there, quite another language, quite a lot of other languages are with it as well. So now you can use Ruby on the browser without any installation. Essentially, you can go to literally a website and just use Ruby, which is great. You don't need to install anything. You don't need to compile anything. It just works on the website. And it'll be actually absolutely anywhere. A little bit of the history about WebAssembly, what they claim to be: efficient and fast, safe, open, debuggable, and part of the open web. You can dive deeper into it at WebAssembly on the website. This is not a primer to say how WebAssembly came about, how difficult it is. There's a lot in it, but there's a lot of support. A lot of browsers, ignore Internet Explorer, but a lot of browsers do have support for it now. Chrome, Firefox, and Safari and Edge, the main ones. Safari, surprisingly enough, which is aged like milk, which is like the new IE in my opinion these days. But yeah, there's high support, and it's great. So essentially how it works is you basically compile your C program, your Swift or Rust and Go program, into a file which is called a WASM, or WebAssembly module, and then you just load it up in your web browser. So basically any complicated program can technically be compiled into a single file and then just embedded on a website, and then that file will work in your browser. So your browser becomes basically the operating system. How it works with Ruby, very simple thing. You just compile your file, your C Ruby or Ruby 3.2, which is going to be supported, and yeah, just compile it into your application. Then you can run your application in the web browser. There's something called the WebAssembly System Interface. It's something to check out. You can go on this website. It gives you a lot of the operating system features, like say, files, file systems, timers, etc. And we'll just do a quick demo. So I'm just going to open up a few files here, and so we'll start with the most basic thing of everything, which is Hello World. Can you all see my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So basically, you just import a JavaScript file into your browser, statically placed, static HTML page, hello HTML, and then you can type a script, a nice script Ruby of Hello World. You start your browser by, let me just see, You can just start your browser by installing WebBrick, as we can see here, and then run a command ruby run httpd, and that will start up a port on port 8080 and just displaying this directory. And we're just going to go into hello. And when you go into hello, nothing appears, but when you view the inspect it and look at the console, hey, look, Ruby, great. You can expand that out and basically just sort of put in some nice shebang, time.now. This should hopefully work. Let's see. Yeah, cool. Ruby, right in the browser. You didn't have to have a server. You didn't have to have Puma running, WebBrick, well, apart from WebBrick, but that was just to present the file. Basically, Ruby scripting in the browser, which is nice. You can go a bit deeper and back to our directory. And the second one will be just around a bit of ASCII art. So essentially, this bit of code here will, a little bit more involved. So it's just going to print out some pyramid of ASCII art, and just you've got your, your basic Ruby syntax that you can go through and essentially print it out to the console. Okay. So you might think it's all just console based, but you can actually bring this back into the browser as well. And by a simple, everything seems to be simple in a live demo, but you can just access the JS Global, print a string to the browser as well. So let's just go to a third example, which is Namaste. Looking at the code, you can see we are giving a variable, putting that into JavaScript, writing that directly to the Ruby or to the DOM, to the JavaScript DOM. So it's really quite easy, simple, right? Now you can go deeper because these are not complicated applications. I'm not going to go too far deep into the demo 4 because it's not ready yet and I didn't get it working on my machine in time in the half hour that I was at this point. But essentially you can package up all your bundler, all of your gems and make a much more complicated Ruby application, and then bring that into the browser as well. You'll need a couple of tools, WASI VFS, which is for the virtual file system layer. And then you need a standalone runtime for Ruby as well, WASTime. And then you'll need to download a pre-built Ruby binary. This binary is using Ruby C, which I think at the moment is 3.2, the latest version. This is full WebAssembly support. You then just basically package that up with your source code. It'll give you the WASM file, which is the end result. Which is based off the application. You'll need to point your gem files at it. And then once that's done, you just basically include this WASM file into your page. And then you can, I'm not sure if WASM is the right way to put it, WebAssembly file or WebAssembly module, WASM file. And you just include this file in your page. Now, I don't have a demo for you here, but just know you can do it. It just, you just need to delve into it. And then what that opens up is a lot more libraries and files for you to use. So you can basically use any gem whatsoever in your application, okay, on a browser without having to install or present all the other files that the gem might require. You're basically doing what WAR files used to do with Java. Does anybody do Java way back when and knows what a WAR file is? It's basically a fancy WAR file, but now in WebAssembly file. And that's the end of the demo. I just wanted to give you a bit of a taste of what WebAssembly can do with Ruby. You can do this with Rust and C and Swift, whatever language you want to do it. WebAssembly can support it. It was announced recently WebAssembly will support Ruby 3.2 and WASI out of the box, so you won't have to do much of anything. There's a couple of limitations with the system as it is. There's no thread APIs, so if you're making threadable programs, it can be a little bit tricky. Okay. C extension libraries as well, a little bit tricky as well. So the likes, if you had to use native files, native C applications in your gems, there's going to be issues trying to bring those into the WebAssembly or into the WebAssembly system for your program. WebAssembly is pretty small. Like most of the time, you actually don't need most of the bells and whistles in your application. We only use a couple of percent of our brain. We also only use a couple of percent of the Ruby functions and libraries and modules that we have available to us. So you can actually, go for minimal, full, or full stdlib and be very, very minimal if you like. But 8.1, with raw, but then if you compress it down, 1.7 meg is pretty reasonable. I've seen some JavaScript libraries that are much heavier in Node modules. It's really fast, somewhat. Depends what you're comparing it to. It's not as fast as native, but it's almost as fast as mRuby. And it's improving. Really development now is going full swing into this. Things will improve pretty quickly, but it's something that you can use for your own hobby applications for sure. I definitely think you can use things if you wanted to push something for production, absolutely, try it, see how it goes. I don't think people will notice it. It's usually the bandwidth or of their own machine that might be the problem more so than the actual speed of the libraries. So just to recap, it's going to support WebAssembly in 3.2. You've got precompiled libraries that you can use with Ruby WebAssembly, and you can try your favorite gems here. So like here's an example of when I was saying, a Ruby application in the browser. Basically, this is IRB loading up. Done. Now it's installing Haml. It's slow, but done. Okay, so you've got Ruby as a first-class citizen in the web browser by doing absolutely very little. Okay. Coming back to it as the next step is the resources. I can provide all these links in the chat or in the slides later, and you can have a look through them. Have a look at this Ruby Kagi presentation. He really presents it a lot more. He goes into the internals of WebAssembly with Ruby and how they got Ruby support with CRuby. And the difficulties that they faced, or the dragons that they were facing, should I say. There's some awesome WebAssembly resources that you can go and check out. Probably the best application I've seen that uses WebAssembly these days, I think, is probably Figma, which is probably the largest WebAssembly citizen on the planet, and with the many billions that they sold for. Yeah, so definitely it's something, and I think it's the future of web development. Taking this approach. If you can package, I'm not saying Ruby and WebAssembly is the future, but perhaps faster languages, maybe C and Rust, that you can actually just live with and combine those two for your web applications is going to be amazing. But something to look into. I just wanted to give everybody a taste. I didn't want to go too deep. And yeah, that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
I haven't, only after you mentioned Figma uses WASM did I realize that's probably the only application that I know of. So, there's a lot of performance benefits, but I'm just curious, the way how it's going to be adopted more and more.
Yeah, so with Figma, I think it was all C. Basically, he was just writing a lot of C and graphics code, and he had a lot of demos. And then they wanted to access GPU code, and this was probably the better way through it. And it just seemed to, as far as I know, it's one of the bigger applications using WebAssembly at the moment. You can check out this link here, which is a curated list of cool projects that have WebAssembly. Yeah, check it out. There's a lot of tutorials and also projects of different people in their hobby stuff. But yeah, go for it. Theoretically, like I've seen people using Doom or compiling Doom into a WebAssembly module and then just putting that in the browser and then playing Doom in the browser. I've seen Winamp. I don't know if you guys used Winamp way back when. That was a new thing. There's a guy who just does Twitch videos of just all he does is builds WebAssembly from old code that other people wrote, and he just compiles them. And now he's just building his own operating system in WebAssembly. which is really cool. You know, so all it is just loads of repackaged code with WebAssembly links, and it just works. And you've got your browser and you got your operating system in the browser, which is pretty nifty. Yeah. But yeah, definitely check it out. It's for me, I think it's the most exciting part of the internet at the moment these days, and definitely worthwhile having a look into. Okay. There is, I think my favorite was from just an honorary mention, just to give you an example. This is a Game Boy emulator written in WebAssembly, where you can, sorry, not written, compiled into or converted into WebAssembly, and being able to be embedded. And you can see, like, it's got full Game Boy compatibility, and pretty cool stuff. So it can be done, So basically, all this old code that's out there can basically be used in WebAssembly, and it makes me rethink of how applications can be written. It doesn't need to be just the MVC, model that Rails is really pushing. It doesn't need to be React and Vue on the front end anymore. When you actually have like really fast responses that can write to the DOM in these applications, you can have lots of miniature applications. It might be a nightmare to develop and maintain, but it'd be fun to build for a little while. So I think for me, it's the question is, can we get this into production account? Is there a way of writing this code in a nice way that other engineers can easily do it and bring it to production on a regular basis? So that's the next step for me to understand. So any other questions? Cool. All right. Sorry, either it was a bad presentation or nobody's interested in WebAssembly. So
Yeah, no. Like, I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say that that was a very phenomenal presentation, and I have found something to do in my spare time now. So I'm gonna look into WebAssembly and probably, write a few code sometimes in it.
yeah,
So
cool.
yeah.
I'm not going to take the credit. It's literally the guy you need to go and look at is this guy here, Yuta Saito. I've added some extra stuff, but there's a video. Go watch it. He has a lot more in depth into it, and he's got all the slides here as well. You can see. I think I ripped off one or two of his pages for ease of quick presentation. But definitely go and watch it. And if you haven't watched Ruby Kagi, go and see every single video, please. It's all translated. Have you guys watched Ruby Kagi this year? No? Go and watch it. It's where all the hardcore Rubyists are gathering every year in Japan. And yeah, just binge on their videos. You will learn so much. Okay. All right. And with that, I'm going to go into the next section of the presentation, which is essentially jobs. I know we have a small group here today. Is anyone hiring in the group at the moment in Nepal or remotely or internationally for Ruby? And is anyone in the group looking for work that we can connect for a new job? Is everybody happily employed? Is anybody unhappily employed? Does anybody have a job for a Rubyist in Nepal in the group?
I do. So if anybody's looking for one, please get in touch with me.
Stripe?
No, younger patients.
Okay.
We're
Cool.
starting a new Ruby branch.
Nice. Wasn't there a Ruby branch before?
No, it's mostly been PHP and Laravel.
Okay, cool. All right. And just remind everybody where they can get in touch with you at hey.com, Vivek at hey.com. Sweet. Anybody else? Anybody's companies hiring for Ruby? Over at House, we're hiring for DevOps, QA, and full stack JavaScript developers. Ruby positions have been filled. I think Dinesh took the last one. So, sorry. Is anybody else? Okay, cool. Is this a section that you guys want to keep in these presentations going forward? Like, I think like for interns, like for possibilities of juniors and stuff like that, it's going to be harder for interns to find work. So, this could be a good way for them to kind of get the word out that they're looking to be hired. Okay, if they're attending these meetings. the next part is Ruby episode 21. We need a host and we need speakers. I will be potentially traveling this time next month. I'll be in Thailand for the Ruby Bangkok. Is anybody going to that? No? There's a RubyConf Thailand happening at the beginning of December. So I'll be able to help with Zoom and just getting things set up. Happy to help you, vet speakers and stuff like that as well. Not that we have so many, but if anybody is looking to or interested in hosting, we're looking for a host and we're also looking for speakers. So please step up. As I said, look, we're a community. We all have to kind of, it can't be the same people speaking every time. Avi, you've spoken twice in the last 2 sessions. Anybody else would like to step up?
I would just say that I think people might be afraid that it takes a lot of time, or it's like really complicated, or you suddenly have a lot of responsibilities. But I think it's not that hard. So if anybody wants to do it, it's a great opportunity to build certain kind of skills.
Yep.
There's another opportunity as well, where if you want to present but you don't have any ideas, maybe we can have just share some of the different topics that people can research and present as well. So that could be another one.
On the RubyNepal.org GitHub page, there's an issues section. So a lot of people have put up presentations before, but it's a bit stale. A lot of those people have left the country. So if all of you can go onto that page and just add an issue of which of what you want to hear, what you potentially want to present, that would be amazing, and I can get in touch with you instead of just doing paper call all the time. Paper call doesn't seem to have a big take up. I prefer to do it in the GitHub issues, and that we can connect you there. Also, if you haven't, please join the RubyNepal Slack channel and the Developers Nepal Slack channel as well. It's worthwhile to just start building up conversations, have good chats, and if people have problems with code, if people have issues that they need solved, there's a lot of experience in the room. We can all help each other. Okay. So if you would like to host, please get in touch. I'm on RubyNepal Slack as well as Developers Nepal Slack, and I'm also on Twitter at Sean O'Cleric as well. And that closes out the episode. So thank you so much to everybody for coming. So do you want to stay and chat? Is there anybody who wants to stay and network a little bit and we can just shoot the shit? Or will we shut it down? I'll leave it running for a while and I'm going to stop recording. And thank you so much to everybody for coming. And until next time at episode 22, we'll see you then.